The storm came without warning. The wind howled across the plains, shaking the metal walls of Ethan's small outpost. He lived far from the nearest settlement, working alone as a mechanic for the human frontier station. Most nights were quiet, filled only with the hum of machines and the soft hiss of rain. But tonight felt different. The air carried something strange, an electric pulse that made the ground tremble. Ethan stepped outside, his jacket flapping in the wind. Lightning flashed, lighting up the sky in violent white. Then he heard it, a faint sound, not quite human. It was soft, like a cry carried through the storm. He frowned, gripping his flashlight tighter. No one should be out here this far. He followed the sound, boots sinking into the wet ground. The rain beat down harder as he reached the edge of the forest behind his outpost. Another cry echoed, a child or something like one. Ethan's heart raced. He pushed through the brush, sweeping the beam of light ahead. That's when he saw her. Lying in the mud was a small figure, glowing faintly blue. She was curled up, shaking. Her clothes were torn, strange symbols glimmering faintly on the fabric. Ethan froze for a moment. Her skin wasn't human. It shimmered with tiny lights under the rain like stars trapped beneath the surface. He knelt beside her, careful not to startle her. "Hey," he said softly. "You're all right? I'm not going to hurt you." Her eyes opened slowly, large, bright, and filled with fear. She looked at him as if she didn't understand his words. When he reached out, she flinched, a soft hum coming from her throat like a broken melody. Ethan hesitated. She looked so fragile, so lost. The storm cracked overhead again. He couldn't leave her there. With one deep breath, he lifted her into his arms. She was light, too light. Her skin was cool against his. As he carried her back through the rain, he could feel her trembling. When he reached his workshop, he laid her on the couch near the heater. She blinked, looking around in confusion. Ethan hurried to grab a blanket, wrapping it around her shoulders. "You're safe now," he said, though he wasn't sure she could understand. Her glowing eyes followed his every move. When he brought her a cup of warm water, she sniffed it first, then drank slowly, hands shaking. Ethan sat across from her, studying her features. She looked young, maybe early teens by human standards, but something about her eyes felt much older. He tried speaking again. "Can you tell me your name?" She tilted her head. Then she pointed weakly to the window where the rain fell. "Ari," she whispered. The word sounded like music, soft and broken. Ethan repeated it slowly. "Ari, is that your name?" She nodded faintly. Then she closed her eyes, exhausted, curling up under the blanket. Within minutes, she was asleep. Ethan sat there, listening to the rain. He didn't know what to think. An alien child, alone in the storm, how had she ended up here? There were no alien colonies within hundreds of kilometers. And her clothes? Those symbols didn't match any species he knew of. He glanced at the communicator on the table. He could report her. The colony security would come, take her for processing. But something inside him said no. She was terrified when she saw him. If the wrong people found her, they'd treat her like a specimen, not a person. Ethan sighed. "Guess you're staying here for now, kid," he muttered. He stood, checked the doors, and dimmed the lights. Outside, thunder rolled again. But something about the sound felt off. It wasn't just thunder this time. It was deeper, almost mechanical, echoing through the sky. Ethan walked to the window and looked out. Far beyond the storm clouds, for a moment, he saw a faint red glow in the distance, like engines burning in the upper atmosphere. Then it vanished. He frowned. "Ships out here?" He turned back toward the couch. The girl, Ari, was murmuring in her sleep, her glowing skin flickering faintly. He stepped closer, hearing fragments of strange words. Her voice was soft but frightened. Ethan didn't understand, but he could feel her fear. Whatever she had run from, it wasn't over. He locked the doors and loaded his old plasma pistol just in case. The storm might pass, but something told him that tonight was only the beginning. Morning came slowly. The storm had ended, leaving the sky washed in pale light. The air smelled of wet soil and ozone. Ethan rubbed his eyes as he stepped out of his small bedroom. The workshop was quiet, except for the low hum of the heater. The alien girl, Ari, was still sleeping on the couch, wrapped tightly in the blanket. Her faint blue glow had dimmed to a soft shimmer like the light of a dying ember. He stood for a while watching her. She looked peaceful now, but something about her presence filled the room with strange energy. The tools on his desk gave off a faint static crackle. Even his communication console flickered once before settling again. Weird, he muttered, running a hand through his hair. Ethan made some breakfast, instant coffee and protein bars, the usual frontier meal. He placed a small bowl of warm broth near Ari and stepped back. She stirred at the smell, her eyelids fluttering open. When she saw him, she tensed for a moment, then relaxed when she recognized his face. "Good morning," he said softly, keeping his tone gentle. She tilted her head but didn't answer. She reached out slowly, sniffed the food like a cautious animal, then took a small sip. A faint hum escaped her throat, almost a sound of approval. Ethan smiled. "Glad you like it." As she ate, he tried speaking again. "Ari, do you understand me?" She blinked, her gaze curious but silent. When he pointed to himself and said, "Ethan," she repeated it slowly, "E-tan." Then she pointed at herself and said softly, "Ari." He grinned. "Good, Ari." The connection was small, but it was something. She seemed to like the sound of his name, repeating it like a song. But every time he mentioned the outside world, pointing at the window or making a gesture of flying, her glow dimmed and her eyes filled with fear. She would shake her head quickly and press herself into the couch. Ethan realized something terrible must have happened out there. Whoever she ran from, she didn't want to go back. He gave her some space and began working on a broken generator at the corner of the room. She watched him the whole time, her eyes full of wonder as he fixed the machine. When it powered up, sending a soft blue light through the room, she clapped her hands in quiet excitement. Ethan chuckled. "You like machines, huh?" She didn't reply, but her smile said enough. Hours passed. She began exploring the room carefully, touching objects, studying wires and tools as if they were treasures. Then she found a piece of paper and a pencil on the table. She stared at it for a moment, then picked them up and began to draw. Her hand moved quickly, smooth and precise. Ethan leaned closer. She wasn't just doodling. She was sketching symbols, circles, triangles, lines crossing like star paths. In the center, she drew a large spiral with a small dot inside it. "Is that where you came from?" Ethan asked. She nodded slowly and tapped the spiral, then pointed upward, to the sky. Her eyes turned sad, distant. Ethan felt a chill. "You're lost, aren't you?" Ari looked at him, not understanding the words, but sensing his tone. She nodded again, this time with a small tremble. Her glow flickered. Before Ethan could comfort her, a sharp sound interrupted them, a metallic click from outside. His sensors began blinking red on the console. Something had entered the perimeter again. Ethan froze. "Not again," he whispered. He picked up his blaster and walked to the door. The scanner showed faint movement, 3 signals approaching slowly. He turned to Ari. "Stay here." She didn't understand, but she saw the fear in his eyes. She backed away, clutching the blanket tightly. Ethan opened the door a crack. The air outside was cold and heavy. Nothing but mist at first, then a faint shimmer of light near the tree line. He closed the door quietly and returned to the console, trying to boost the signal range. For a brief moment, a faint voice came through the static. Alien language, unfamiliar but urgent. Then it cut off. He looked at Ari. She was staring at him wide-eyed as if she knew exactly what that voice meant. Her body glowed brighter now and her hands shook. "Ari," Ethan said carefully. "Do you know who that is?" She didn't speak, but tears welled in her eyes. She pointed toward the sound, then to her chest. Then she drew 2 shapes in the air. 2 tall figures. Ethan's stomach tightened. 2 others, like her? Before he could ask more, the alarm flashed again. Stronger this time. Someone was close. Then came the knock. A heavy, echoing thud on the metal door. Ethan froze. The knock came again. 3 slow, deliberate hits that rattled the frame. Ari gasped and ran behind him, clutching his sleeve. Ethan aimed his blaster, his heart pounding. The storm might have ended, but something far more dangerous had just arrived. The heavy knocks echoed through the metal walls, shaking the floor beneath Ethan's boots. He gripped his blaster tighter, his heart hammering in his chest. The air felt cold, thick with tension. Behind him, Ari pressed against the wall, her small hands trembling, her glowing skin pulsing brighter with fear. The knocks came again, slow and deliberate, like whoever was outside already knew he was listening. Ethan took a deep breath and moved closer to the door. "Who's there?" He shouted, no answer. Only silence. And then a soft hum, like engines powering down. He risked a quick glance through the narrow window beside the door. His breath caught. Standing just beyond the porch were two tall figures, both wearing sleek metallic armor that shimmered under the pale morning light. Their helmets were smooth and featureless, glowing faintly around the eyes. For a moment, Ethan thought they were drones. Then one of them moved, lifting a hand in what looked like a peaceful gesture. "Human." A calm voice spoke through a translator, echoing slightly through the metal. "We mean no harm. We are searching for someone." A young one. Ethan's stomach tightened. He looked back at Ari. She had already hidden behind the couch, her wide eyes glowing brighter, her body trembling violently. She shook her head, whispering something in her alien tongue. Whatever she said, the fear in her tone was enough for Ethan to understand. She didn't want to go with them. He turned back to the door. "I don't know who you're talking about," he said carefully. The taller figure stepped forward. "Please, human. Time is short. The storm last night scattered our signals. We tracked an escape pod. It landed close to this area. We must find the child." Ethan hesitated. The second figure tilted her head slightly as if studying him through the armor. "Your scanner shows her presence," she said softly. "We can sense her energy inside." Ethan cursed under his breath. They could detect her glow. Lying wasn't an option anymore. He opened the door halfway, keeping his weapon lowered but ready. "You're looking for her? Then tell me who you are first." The first figure reached up and tapped the side of her helmet. With a soft hiss, it retracted. Ethan's breath caught again. Beneath the armor was the face of a woman, tall, graceful, and unnervingly beautiful. Her eyes glowed faintly silver, her skin marked with thin lines of light that pulsed like living circuits. She looked almost human. "Almost. My name is Lyra," she said. "We are guardians of the Mirren Dominion. The child you have, she is not just lost. She is in danger. We are here to protect her." Ethan lowered his blaster slightly but didn't relax. "If you're protectors, why is she so terrified of you?" Lyra paused, glancing at the other woman beside her who had also removed her helmet. This one looked younger, her features sharper, her eyes a deep violet. "Because she has seen death," the second woman said quietly. "Our ship was attacked. She escaped before we could reach her. Others came, hunters from a rival faction. They want her dead." Ethan frowned. "Hunters?" Lyra nodded. "They may already be near. The signal from her pod was detected across half this sector. You brought her inside, yes? You did well to keep her hidden." He didn't know what to say. It sounded like something out of a war report, not real life. But Ari's reaction, her trembling, her fear, it made sense now. Lyra looked past him. "May we come in, please? We must see that she is safe." Ethan hesitated. Then he saw Ari peek out from behind the couch, her glowing eyes meeting his. She shook her head violently, whispering in panic. "No! No!" Ethan sighed, his chest tight. "You step inside and no one touches her. You understand?" Lyra nodded. "Agreed." They entered slowly, the sound of their armor quiet but heavy. When Ari saw them, she pressed herself against the wall, crying out in her strange tongue. Lyra knelt down, lowering her weapon. "Ariel," she said softly. "Little one, you are safe now." Ari didn't move. Her eyes filled with tears, glowing brighter. She said something quick and sharp, shaking her head again. Ethan watched as Lyra's face turned sorrowful. "She remembers," Lyra whispered. "The explosion. The attack. She saw her mother fall." The room fell silent except for the faint hum of the heater. Ethan lowered his weapon completely now. "She's been through hell," he said quietly. "She doesn't trust anyone." Lyra stood. "Then she will trust you. You saved her life. That bond cannot be broken." Ethan frowned. "What does that mean?" Lyra looked toward the sky through the window. "It means her life and yours are now linked by fate." Before Ethan could ask more, the alarm beeped again. The scanner lit up, 6 new signals closing fast. Lyra's expression hardened. "The hunters have found us." Ethan's blood ran cold. He looked at Ari, then at the 2 alien women. The storm might have passed, but the real danger had just begun. The red warning light blinked across Ethan's workshop, painting the walls in a pulsing glow. The soft hum of the scanner had turned into a sharp, steady alarm. Outside, movement flickered on the edge of the forest, 6 heat signatures closing in fast. Lyra's silver eyes hardened. "They're here." The younger alien woman stepped forward, tapping a device on her wrist. A shimmering shield of light formed around the cabin for a brief moment, before fading into invisibility. "That'll hold them for a little while," she said quietly, her voice calm but strained. Ethan gripped his blaster. You said hunters. What kind of hunters? Lyra's gaze turned distant. Mercenaries from the Draxan Order, ruthless. They chase power, not mercy. They want the girl alive for her blood. Ethan frowned. Her blood? Why? Lyra looked at Ari, who sat trembling near the corner, her glowing eyes reflecting fear and confusion. Because she is not just a child. She is the heir of the Mirren Dominion, the only living daughter of the High Empress. The words hit Ethan like a punch. Wait, she's royalty? Lyra nodded slowly. Her people ruled dozens of worlds. Her mother, our Empress, was betrayed by her own council. The Draxan attacked during the coup. Ariel was hidden in an escape pod before the palace fell. Ethan turned toward the little girl. You mean she's the daughter of an alien queen? Lyra's lips curved in sadness. Yes, and now every enemy of her kind is hunting her. Her life means power. Whoever holds her controls the Mirren throne. The younger guardian, who had been scanning the perimeter, turned sharply. Lyra, we need to move now. The shield won't last. The Draxan ships are approaching from orbit. Lyra placed a hand on her shoulder. We can't move until we ensure the human is not harmed. He helped her. He's part of this now. Ethan raised a brow. I didn't sign up for galactic politics. I just pulled a scared kid out of the rain. Lyra smiled faintly. And in doing so, you changed the course of two worlds. Ari stood up slowly, watching the conversation with wide eyes. She walked toward Ethan and tugged at his sleeve. Her small hand trembled as she pointed at the symbols she had drawn earlier, the spiral and stars. Home, she whispered softly. Gone. Ethan knelt beside her. We'll keep you safe, Ari, I promise. Lyra watched them, a strange expression crossing her face. She trusts you, she said softly. That bond could save her. The younger alien woman turned back from the window. Or doom you both. Before Ethan could respond, the scanner beeped again, closer this time. The shield shimmered as blaster fire struck it, sending ripples through the air. They've found us, Lyra said sharply. Prepare for battle. Ethan ran to the weapons locker. I've got a few rifles and an old defense drone. It's not much. Lyra's armor flared with light as she activated her energy blades. It will do. Through the narrow window, Ethan saw dark shapes moving in the mist, tall, armored figures with glowing red visors. They fanned out, surrounding the cabin. The Draxan hunters were efficient, silent, and fast. Ari cried out as the walls shook from the first explosion. Lyra shouted something in her language, and the younger guardian sprinted to the front door, firing a blast of blue energy that tore through the nearest attacker. Ethan took position beside her, firing short bursts from his blaster. These guys aren't giving up. They won't, Lyra said grimly. They've tracked her for weeks. They'll burn this world to get her back. The battle raged for minutes that felt like hours. Sparks flew as blaster bolts hit metal. The cabin walls groaned under the pressure. Ethan's arm burned from recoil, but he didn't stop. He moved like a soldier again, instincts from his old life returning in full force. Finally, silence. Smoke filled the air. Outside, the bodies of the Draxan hunters lay scattered among the trees, their armor cracked and sparking. Ethan lowered his weapon, breathing heavily. That all of them? Lyra checked her scanner. For now. Ari ran to Ethan and hugged him tightly. Her tiny hands glowed brighter, leaving soft blue light on his shirt. For a moment, the exhaustion faded. He looked down at her, surprised by the warmth that spread from her touch. It felt like sunlight in winter. Lyra watched them, her expression unreadable. She has chosen you, she said quietly. Ethan blinked. Chosen me? Lyra nodded. Mirren heirs form a psychic bond with the one who saves their life. It cannot be broken. Ethan stared at her. You're saying I'm linked to her? Yes, Lyra replied. Her mind, her heartbeat, her pain, all connected to yours now. He shook his head. That's impossible, but deep inside, he could already feel it. A faint pulse in his chest like a second heartbeat, echoing softly with hers. Lyra looked toward the horizon, where distant red lights glowed in the sky. More Draxan ships will come. You cannot stay here. If they capture you both, the entire Mirren Dominion will fall. Ethan frowned. So what's the plan? Lyra met his eyes, her silver glow brightening. We run. Together. Outside, the first streaks of dawn broke across the sky, but it wasn't sunlight Ethan saw. It was the reflection of incoming fire. The war for the girl had only just begun. The morning sky looked wrong. It wasn't the calm blue Ethan was used to. It shimmered with streaks of silver and red like the heavens themselves were tearing open. The low hum in the air grew louder with every passing second. Lyra didn't even have to look up to know what it was. "They've found us again," she said flatly, eyes scanning the horizon. Ethan followed her gaze. Far above the clouds, dark ships glided through the sky, sleek, sharp, and shaped like hunting blades. The Draxen were returning, and this time they weren't sending scouts. They were sending an army. Ari stood near the window, clutching the edge of her blanket, her glowing eyes wide with fear. The blue light on her skin flickered rapidly, pulsing with panic. Ethan knelt beside her and gently placed his hand on her shoulder. "Hey, you're safe. We won't let them take you." She looked at him, tears forming in her eyes. "Go," she whispered, her voice trembling. "They come." "For me," Ethan shook his head. "Not happening." "You're not alone anymore." Lyra turned sharply. "Ethan, she's right. We can't win this fight head on, not against ships of that size." The younger guardian, still tending to a wound on her arm from the last battle, glanced up. "The valley to the north," she said quickly. "There's an old outpost there, human and Mirren tech mixed. We can use its tunnels." Ethan nodded. "I know it. It's abandoned, but it might still have working shields." "Then that's where we go," Lyra decided. "We move now." Outside, the wind howled. The air shimmered as the first Draxen dropships broke through the clouds, their engines roaring like thunder. The storm had returned, not of rain this time, but of war. Ethan grabbed his pack, stuffed with tools, ammo, and the few supplies he had left. Ari's small hand slipped into his as they stepped outside. Her glow dimmed as the morning light hit her face, but she didn't let go. The three of them ran through the trees, boots crunching over wet soil. The sound of explosions echoed behind them as the cabin erupted in flames. Ethan looked back once. It was gone, swallowed by fire. The home he'd built with years of hard work vanished in seconds. Lyra didn't slow down. "Don't look back," she said, her voice firm. "The past burns easily. Keep your eyes ahead." The path through the forest twisted and dipped. The trees were dense, offering cover, but the sky still flashed red above. Draxen drones zipped through the air, scanning with blood-colored beams. Ethan raised his blaster and shot one down. The others scattered. "We can't outrun them forever," he shouted. Lyra pressed a glowing disc into his hand. "Then don't. Use this." He looked down. It was a small orb, humming faintly. "What is it?" "A field disruptor," she explained. "Throw it when they're close. It'll blind their sensors." Ethan nodded and kept running. He could feel the adrenaline pounding through his veins, his muscles burning. He hadn't felt this alive since the old wars. Behind them, the younger guardian covered their trail with bursts of blue energy, cutting through drones and trees alike. But the enemy ships were descending now, their engines shaking the ground. Ari stumbled, falling to her knees. Ethan scooped her up without a word and kept moving. She pressed her face into his shoulder, whispering something in her strange language. Words he couldn't understand, but they sounded like a prayer. Then, a shadow fell across them. One of the Draxen ships hovered low, its ramp opening. Armored figures leapt down, weapons glowing. Ethan tossed the disruptor. The orb exploded into a wave of bright white light. The air screamed as the sensors fried, and the Draxen staggered blindly. Lyra fired at their exposed armor, each shot perfect and deadly. "Keep going," she yelled. The group reached the ridge overlooking the valley. Below lay the old human outpost, half buried, covered in vines and dust. Ethan jumped down first, landing hard, then waved for the others. "This way." They reached the massive metal doors, rusted but intact. Ethan entered an old code, hoping it still worked. The panel buzzed weakly, then flickered green. The door opened with a hiss. As soon as they entered, Lyra slammed it shut behind them. The tunnels were dark, cold, and silent. Only the faint glow of their armor lit the path. Ari held Ethan's hand tighter. "Home?" she asked softly. "Not yet," he said, forcing a smile. "But safer than outside." Lyra activated a console on the wall, bringing up a holographic map of the area. "If we power this place, we can activate the shield again. It'll hide us, at least until help arrives." Ethan looked at her.
"You have help coming?"
She hesitated. "If our signal reached Mirren Command, yes. If not," she trailed off, eyes darkening. "Then we are all that's left." Ethan sighed, wiping sweat from his brow. "Guess that makes us the front line." Lyra gave a small smile. You fight like one already. For a brief moment, silence returned. The storm outside raged on, thunder echoing through the walls. But inside that ancient outpost, among flickering lights and metal shadows, three species stood together, human and alien, united by something far stronger than fear. Ari looked up at Ethan and whispered a single word again. Together. Ethan nodded, gripping her hand gently. Yeah, he said softly. Together. But deep in the dark tunnels ahead, something stirred. A low rumble, like machinery awakening after a long sleep. The storm outside might have been terrifying, but what waited below could be far worse. The tunnels were silent except for the faint hum of forgotten machines. Dust floated through the dim blue light that shimmered from Lyra's armor. Every sound echoed, their footsteps, their breaths, even Ari's soft whimper as she clung to Ethan's arm. Somewhere far above, thunder rolled and metal screamed, the Draxon ship circling like wolves hunting for movement. Ethan checked his blaster. We can't stay hidden forever, he said quietly. Lyra's eyes glowed faintly silver in the dark. We stay until the power core reboots. Then we activate the shields. Once it's up, this facility will vanish from their sensors. The younger Guardian, Taryn, knelt by the old control panel, wiping grime from its surface. It's old human tech, she muttered, but I can merge Mirren energy flow into it. Give me time, Ethan nodded. You've got it. I'll watch the entrance. He moved toward the rusted blast door, every instinct alive. The soldier in him, the one he thought he left behind years ago, had returned. His pulse was steady, his grip firm. Fear had no place here anymore. Behind him, Ari sat beside a crate, drawing something in the dust with her finger. Spirals and stars again. When he looked closer, he noticed a small shape at the center. A man standing beside her drawings of tall aliens. Ethan realized she was drawing him. You're making me taller than I really am, he said with a faint grin. She giggled softly, her glow flickering brighter. Hero, she whispered. The word caught him off guard. What did you say? Ari pointed at him again. Hero, he chuckled. Not sure about that, kid. Lyra looked up from the console. In her tongue, that word means protector. She doesn't say it lightly. Ethan didn't reply. He just nodded and turned back to his watch. Outside the metal walls, faint rumbling grew louder. Heavy boots, machinery, movement. The Draxon were getting closer. They're tracking us through energy trails, Taryn said. Their sensors can follow our footprints of heat. Lyra frowned. Then we need to turn the tables. Ethan smirked. I like that plan already. Lyra approached him. You're human. They underestimate you. That's an advantage we can use. Let me guess, Ethan said, raising a brow. You want me to be the bait? Lyra's silence was answer enough. He sighed but smiled. Figures. Just like old times. Ari ran to him, shaking her head furiously. No, go, she said, clutching his sleeve tightly. Her eyes were wide, filled with fear. Ethan knelt and gently placed a hand on her shoulder. I'll come back, he said softly. But if I don't go, they'll find us, and then no one's safe. You understand? She shook her head again, tears glowing like liquid light. Lyra watched quietly. There was something new in her eyes, respect and maybe sorrow. If he fails, she whispered to Taryn, we all die. Ethan heard her but didn't flinch. Good thing I don't fail easily. He grabbed an old pulse grenade, checked the charge, and slipped through the side passage leading toward the outer tunnel. The deeper he went, the colder it became. Pipes dripped. The lights flickered. The hum of distant engines grew stronger. Then he saw them, dark shapes moving through the misty corridor. Draxon troopers, tall and armored, their red visors slicing through the dark. Ethan crouched low, heart pounding, waiting for the right moment. When the lead trooper came close enough, he tossed the grenade. The flash erupted in blinding blue light, slamming the hunters against the wall. Ethan charged forward, firing bursts into the chaos. One by one, they fell. But there were more, always more. He ducked behind a metal column, breathing hard. His shoulder burned from a graze. Still he smiled. You wanted me, you monsters? Come get me! The Draxon roared in their mechanical voices, rushing him. Ethan fought like a storm, moving fast, firing true. Every hit he took, he answered with two of his own. The tunnel filled with smoke, sparks, and the sharp smell of burnt metal. Then silence. When the smoke cleared, Ethan stood alone, bruised, bleeding, but alive. Around him, the bodies of the Draxen lay still. Back in the control room, alarms beeped. Lyra looked up, shocked. "He did it," she whispered. "He's clearing the way." Ari ran to the door, feeling something, a faint warmth in her chest. Her bond with Ethan pulsed stronger. She could feel him, his pain and his heartbeat. "He fight," she said softly. "He live." Lyra's console finally beeped green. "Shields online." The entire base hummed as a shimmering energy wave expanded outward, cloaking them from scanners. Lyra turned to Taryn. "Get the medkit ready. He'll be back soon." Moments later, Ethan stumbled through the door, covered in dust and blood, but grinning. "Told you I don't fail easy." Ari ran to him and threw her arms around him, her glow brighter than ever. He laughed weakly and patted her back. "Told you I'd come back, didn't I?" Lyra looked at him, this human who fought like a warrior and protected like family. "You could have run," she said quietly. "But you didn't," Ethan shrugged. "Running's never been my style." Outside, the storm still raged, lightning cutting through clouds of smoke. But deep inside the tunnels, the human who refused to run had done the impossible. He had given them hope. And as Ari pressed her glowing hand against his chest, a soft light spread through the room. Warm, gentle, alive. The bond between them pulsed stronger, brighter, unbreakable. For the first time in her young life, Ari smiled without fear. And for the first time in a long time, Ethan believed, maybe, just maybe, humanity's heart could still change the stars. The storm outside had begun to fade, but the silence it left behind felt heavier than thunder. Inside the old outpost, the air shimmered faintly with the hum of the shield field. For the first time since it all began, they were hidden, safe, for now. Ethan sat on a crate, his arm wrapped in bandages. His jacket was torn, streaked with blood and dust. Across from him, Ari sat quietly, tracing soft lights in the air with her glowing fingers. Every motion she made pulsed faintly in rhythm with his heartbeat. The strange connection between them now undeniable. Lyra and Taryn stood near the console, watching the skies through a flickering hologram. Draxen ships hovered in the upper atmosphere, searching, scanning, but unable to find them. "They'll leave soon," Taryn said. "Their sensors can't detect anything past the field." Lyra didn't answer. Her gaze remained fixed on the image of the ships. "No," she whispered. "They won't leave. Not until they find her. The Draxen never stop hunting." Ethan stood wincing as his arm tensed. "Then we'll stop them first." Taryn turned to him, her eyes wide. "You can't mean to fight them again." "We barely survived the last attack." Ethan met her gaze with calm determination. "I didn't mean alone." He looked at Lyra. "You said Mirren Command might pick up your signal. What if we make sure they do?" Lyra frowned. "Our beacon was destroyed when we crashed. Then we build another," Ethan said simply. Taryn blinked. "With what?" "This place is a tomb. Half the systems are dead." Ethan smiled faintly. "Lucky for you, I fix dead things for a living." Lyra studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "There's one functioning transmitter left, deep in the lower chamber. But it's ancient, human-built. You think you can restore it?" Ethan cracked a small grin. "Watch me." Hours passed in the flickering half-light. The hum of machinery echoed through the tunnels as Ethan worked tirelessly. Sparks flew, wires hissed, and the smell of heated metal filled the air. Ari sat beside him, passing him tools with small glowing hands, watching every move as though trying to learn. "You're pretty good at this," Ethan said with a smile. She tilted her head, repeating softly, "Good." At this, he chuckled. "You learn fast, kid." Her eyes shimmered like twin stars. "Learn, human." The words made him pause. Something inside him warmed. Not just the connection they shared, but something deeper, gentler. Maybe this was what it meant to be human, to protect, to teach, to care without reason. Lyra approached as he tightened the final connection. "The core's stable," she said. "Once you reroute the power, the beacon should pulse through the ion layer. If anyone from Mirren Command is near, they'll see it." Ethan flipped the last switch. The console lit up in a swirl of green and blue. A deep hum filled the air, the beacon awakening after years of silence. "It's working," Taryn said, eyes wide with disbelief. "You did it!" Ethan gave a tired grin. "Told you. Not my first miracle." But before anyone could celebrate, the ground shook violently. Dust fell from the ceiling. The lights flickered red. Lyra's scanner flared. They found us. The Draxon. They're forcing through the field. Taryn's face went pale. Impossible. That's Mirren-grade tech. They're using phase disruptors, Lyra interrupted. The field won't last long. Ethan turned to the beacon, its hum now steady and strong. If we can hold them off for 5 minutes, the signal will break through. Lyra drew her blades, their silver light slicing through the dark. Then 5 minutes is all we need. The doors exploded inward. Smoke and fire poured into the room as armored Draxons stormed in, shouting in their guttural tongue. Lyra and Taryn met them head-on, energy blades flashing like lightning. Ethan pulled Ari behind the console, shielding her with his body as blaster bolts flew past. "Stay down!" he yelled. She looked terrified, but her small hands glowed brighter, so bright it hurt his eyes. "Help," she whispered. Before Ethan could react, her glow spread outward, forming a sphere of pure light that rippled through the air. The Draxon froze mid-step, their armor crackling, their weapons faltering. Lyra's eyes widened. "She's activating her birthright," she breathed. The Empress's blood, raw Mirren power. The air itself trembled. Ari's glow expanded, pushing back the enemy forces. The beacon pulsed with the same rhythm as her light, like the universe itself answering her call. Ethan held her shoulders, his voice steady. "Easy, kid. You've got this." Her tears fell like tiny stars. "No hurt. No more." The Draxons screamed as their weapons shattered, their armor melting in the brilliance. Then just as suddenly the light faded. Ari collapsed into Ethan's arms, unconscious but breathing. Lyra turned to the beacon. It was blazing bright now, sending its pulse far beyond the clouds. "Signal complete," she whispered. "They'll come for us." Ethan looked down at the little girl sleeping against his chest. "They better hurry," he muttered. Minutes later, the ceiling rumbled. Outside, the dark clouds split apart as a formation of silver ships broke through the atmosphere, the Mirren fleet. Their engines glowed white and their symbols burned across the sky. Lyra smiled faintly. She called them home. Hours later, as dawn broke across the valley, the battle was over. The Draxon ships burned in the distance, their threat finally gone. The Mirren fleet descended quietly, soldiers and medics stepping out with reverence when they saw the child. One of them bowed deeply before Ethan. "Human, you have saved our future." Ethan didn't know what to say. He just nodded, watching as they carried Ari gently onto their ship. Before she disappeared inside, her eyes fluttered open and met his one last time. "Home," she whispered. "Together." Lyra turned to him. "You could come with us," she said softly. "Our leader owes you more than words." Ethan looked at the burning horizon, then at the ship where Ari rested. He smiled faintly. "Guess the stars aren't done with me yet." As the Mirren ship rose into the sky, Ethan stood beneath it, the wind whipping through his hair. Humanity had always been called fragile by the stars, but today, a single human had changed the fate of worlds, not through power, but through heart. And somewhere in the stars, a little girl's voice whispered through the bond they shared. "Hero." Ethan smiled. "Always."